Welcome back to the Ed Show. Thanks for watching tonight. New developments this evening on Scott Walker's failed promise to American workers and workers of Wisconsin. The governor vowed to crack down on outsourcing jobs out of his state. Instead, Walker crafted the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation to boost Wisconsin jobs on one hand, but his office has been doing just the opposite.
Both Eaton Corporation and Plexus Corporation received millions of dollars in financial awards from WEDC, only to later lay off workers. Their jobs were taken by employees at the company's foreign facilities.
That anchor did say millions of dollars. Now, the governor didn't take responsibility for the blow to the workforce. He pointed fingers. Scott Walker accused his challenger to the governor's seat of doing exactly what his agency was guilty of. Tonight, we've got more light to shed on Walker's hypocrisy. 4 more companies outsourced jobs after receiving millions in tax credits. Now a Democratic state representative is calling for the oversight Walker should have had in the first place right from the start. Walker says he's all for it. It's too little too late for the governor, as I see it. Under his watch, millions of dollars in Wisconsin taxpayer dollars have been flushed overseas. Scott Walker doesn't want to boost up the American worker or Wisconsin workers. He just wants to create a facade and get reelected, because that's really what it's all about. And the companies that have received these benefits from the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation have been contributors to his campaign. Joining me tonight in our rapid response panel, Wisconsin State Senator Chris Larson with us, also Ruth Conniff, editor-in-chief of the Progressive magazine. Great to have both of you with us. Senator, you first. What kind of investigation is going to take place in Wisconsin on this when you have the Republicans in power?
Yeah, there's likely not to be one. This is the chicken guarding the hen house. When this agency was created, the WEDC, it was created under Walker, under his supervision, with Republican senators and Republican legislators guiding it, and basically turning over control over what had been a very public part of government that invests money in businesses, and turning it into a private public entity which has limited disclosure, limited public oversight, and actually has not just Governor Walker as a member of the board, but the appointing authority for who else runs the organization. And through that, we've seen a lack of job creation. We've seen loss of jobs within our state. We've seen loss of control of actually where the money is going, and we've seen delayed reports and delayed oversight. And one thing you missed is he's actually proposing less disclosure from WEDC and what companies are actually asking for money from the state. And that's, I mean, it's disturbing when $1.2 million from people who receive money from WEDC are giving directly to the governor. It's very disturbing for the public.
Okay, now I want to clarify. Did you just say that the governor is on this Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation? He is an attending member and board member of this, or chairman?
Chairman of the board.
What is his role in this? He's chairman of the board.
Yeah,
okay, so it's not as if this was going on and he didn't know anything about it, correct?
Yeah. Governor Walker knows more about what's happening at WEDC than anybody else in the public. And what he's showing is, even though he's saying he wants to say, oh, we want to cut this off, he's cutting off disclosure. There's reports that have been delayed because every time a report comes out, there's a new scandal associated with what's happening at WEDC. And the biggest of which is that Wisconsin is last in the Midwest in job creation, dead last in the Midwest. And that's just frustrating for people.
Ruth, we're learning about more and more of these companies. We really don't know how many companies have received these tax credits, do we, and have outsourced these jobs. And another point I want to ask you is that, do we know how many jobs have been outsourced through this organization?
Well, you know, as the senator points out, WEDC has been very reluctant to disclose a whole lot about this, and that's because there's been a series of scandals in the Wisconsin newspapers. They gave away millions of dollars. There were about $12 million in loans they made, and they just didn't bother to collect on those loans. So $12 million in taxpayer money is just floating out there. Some of the companies were never required to create jobs at all. One company got $500,000. There was no job creation attached to it whatsoever. We learned today about 4 more companies that have outsourced. There are probably more. We have more revelations on this coming out at the Progressive magazine. My colleague Mary Batari has been uncovering new information, talking to people within the state, has figured out that about 5,840 jobs is what Walker, who promised to create 250,000 new jobs, 5,840 jobs for these millions of dollars is about what they created. At the same time, the state lost about 13,600 jobs. So a net loss, really. And the outsourcing is amazing, and Walker is really brilliant politically to try to accuse his opponent of outsourcing for being part of a company that has outsourced some jobs. But really, it's a drop in the bucket compared to the Wisconsin taxpayer money that our governor has paid to companies that then lay off Wisconsinites and outsource their jobs.
Well, the global economy is here. There's no question about that. But when you take tax dollars to create jobs in state and then you don't do it, the question is for the bicycle company and the Burke family, did they take taxpayer dollars and go create jobs elsewhere? No. Senator, isn't that the issue?
No, they didn't.
Yeah, what about that, Ruth? What about that?
They did not. They did not get one of these grants. That's another area where the governor has tried to muddy the waters and blame the Commerce Department, because Mary Burke, his opponent, also led the state Commerce Department. That department doesn't exist anymore. Walker himself replaced it with this privatized entity that he leads and began handing out this money willy-nilly. 60%, by the way, went to folks who contributed to his campaign. So these are Walker campaign donors and donors to the Republican Governors Association who've received these grants. And, the money hasn't been tracked. In fact, they created a new category of jobs impacted. They can't say jobs created, so they say, well, maybe if you impacted a job somehow, you should get this money.
Yeah.
Senator, what about the law? I mean, this is borderline fraudulent. To take taxpayer dollars under the umbrella of creating jobs and then that not happening and it clearly being done overseas. I mean, what is the legal arm of this as you see it?
Yeah, the fun part of what Governor Walker did with approval from legislative Republicans was that he would have total rule over money going out. He appoints the person in charge of it. The other people on the board are people who he directs, and they get to decide who gets the money and for what projects. And like Ruth said, for a lot of this money, millions of dollars going out, you don't have to even create a single job to be able to get the money. And that's something that's frustrating, where they've gone even further to say, well, just impacting jobs is enough. And the end result is we are last in the Midwest and falling. And it's frustrating for the unemployed and people looking for work in our state, and they're just sick of it.
State Senator Chris Larson, Ruth Conniff, will look for your great journalism in the Progressive magazine as you continue to follow the story. I appreciate your time tonight. Thanks so much.